Okay, so this is your last warm-up for your packet. Sorry, this should be the 28th. So you should have 3 boxes full in your warm-up. The last box is going to remain empty, and I'll give you a new one for the next investigation. Okay, so go ahead and pause the video if so students can work on their warm-up. Shouldn't take any more than 5, maybe 6 minutes. Okay, so now you can unpause the video. We should have, through these questions, let's answer them together. A number divided by 3 is n. That one's pretty simple. This one should just be n. N equals 12. Okay. Now I know these first two are pretty easy, and the reason why is I wanted to show that 36 divided by 3 is 12. And if I erase this number and I made it an n, you can still find that same number, 36 divided by, in this case, n equals 3 is 12. Okay. Now, for number 3, we have a negative number divided by something equals a positive number. So if this is positive and this one over here is negative, then this number must also be a negative number. N must equal some sort of negative number here. Okay. Now 12 divided by something, negative divided by negative is a positive. I got the positive part right. All I do is figure out the number. So 12 divided by 4 should equal 3. Okay. 18. Now 18 divided by 1/2 is n. 18 divided by 1/2. Okay, so your division of negative numbers, okay, I have negative 18, and I'm going to divide that by 1/2. Now when I divide by a fraction, it's just like multiplying by the reciprocal. So I'm going to flip these over, okay, and I'm going to get 2/1 instead. 2/1. And instead of having division, I'm going to have multiplication. And I'm going to have negative 18/1. Let's move these down a little bit. Okay, so negative 18 times 2, these two on top, that makes negative 36/1. So my final answer should be negative 36 for this n. Okay. Number 5, a number divided by negative 5 is going to be negative 3. Now in order to get this negative 3, I know that this number needs to be a positive number. This needs to be a positive number because a positive divided by negative is going to be a negative. That works. Now something divided by 5 is 3. Something divided by 5, I believe this is a 15. So 15 divided by negative 5 should equal negative 3. Good? Warm up. I'm going to collect everything when I come back. Nothing should be turned in today other than your quiz. Okay? So don't worry about turning anything in just yet. Okay, so the next page in your notes should be 4.1, order of operations with integers. Probably should be changed to rational numbers, but that's okay. We'll leave it as integers. Let's see. Your table of contents should include these last 2 items here, 4.2 and 4.1. I know I put them out of order. I'm not crazy. Okay, so order of operations with integers, page 21. So let's go back. So 4.1, focus question, does order of operations also apply to and work with integers and rational numbers? So that's our main idea. Okay, you should go ahead and pause the video, let the kids catch up, copy down the question and the focus question, the title, the page number. And you have 2 problems here. Damon and Elena have these 2 problems exactly the same, but what you'll notice is their answers are different. Okay, one person has a 26 and the other person has a 41. Okay, the other person has 41. Who is correct and why? Okay, who is correct and y. Okay, with enough time, let's go ahead and solve these and figure out how they got their solutions. Okay, so Damon, as far as I know, Damon did it like this. He went from left to right with no order. Okay, so a negative and a negative together, that makes a positive, makes a plus. So I have 5 plus 6 makes 11. We'll bring the rest of this equation down. 11 times 4 plus negative 3 equals 41. Here, these two, 11 times 4, that's 44. That's this part right here. And we'll continue the rest of this equation. Plus negative 3 equals 41. And then last but not least, 44 minus 3, that is 41, and that equals 41. So that's Damon's method. He just went from left to right and completed the problem. Elena did hers a little bit differently. She did hers in order, according to order of operations. She did this portion first. She multiplied first. So these two, negative 6 and 4, make negative 24. And then the rest of the equation comes down around it. I still have parentheses around this thing because I have a negative on this side. So 5 minus that number, and then plus negative 3. We did multiply first, and then we're going to just add and subtract from left to right because I don't have any more multiplication. This is 5 minus this number, and then this number plus negative 3. So these two, okay, like before in Damon's problem, this negative negative, that becomes a plus. Okay, so 5 plus 24 makes 29. And then we'll bring the rest of the problem down, plus 3 negatives. I'm going to add 3 negatives to my problem. Add 3 negatives. Okay, so I have 29 positives, 3 negatives. Altogether, this portion right here becomes 26. Equals 26. Now the question is, who's right? Who's right? Elena's right. Okay, Elena's correct. Damon is not correct. Okay, he didn't go in order. He just went left to right. He didn't have any order to his questions. Okay, now why do we have order of operations? Is because we don't want these things. We don't want to have the same question and have different answers. We want to have the same answers for the same questions. So we came up with a standard of practice, which is order of operations, and we describe order of operations as GEMMA. Okay, I think you learned this last year as GEMMA: grouping, exponents, multiply and divide, and this little arrow here means from left to right, add and subtract from left to right. GEMMA. Pause the video if you need to so you can write this down. So in your notebook, we're going to work through this question and this multiply right here. Well, let's go through the checklist. Grouping. I don't see any groups, no parentheses here. None at all. So this one, done. Grouping, check. Okay, next one, exponents. I don't see any little exponents anywhere. That's done. Okay, multiply and divide. Let's do that portion next. Multiply and divide. Well, I see a multiply here and I see a divide here. I'm just going to go from left to right. So I'm going to do this multiply here and I'm going to do this divide here. Let's start with this one. Negative times a positive, which is negative 28. Good. Divide. 8 divided by 2, which is 4. Positive 4. And then I'm just going to bring down this addition portion right down here. Okay. Multiply and divide. All done. Nothing left. Okay. Now I can add and subtract. I can add and subtract from left to right. I have negative 28 and positive 4. Well, if I have different signs, I'm just going to subtract. I have 28 negatives. Oops. Let's not do that. I'm just going to subtract. So 28 minus 4. 28 minus 4 gives me 24. Okay, 24. Now, the negatives win because there's more of them. So my final answer should be negative 24. Okay. Now you can also describe this using a number line. Okay. So I know some of you guys are not huge fans of number lines, but I think they're great. Okay. So here's your number line. If I started here at 0, okay, I can go back 28 spaces to -28, and then I can go +4, and I end up at -24. That's another way to describe it. Okay. Pause the video, let the kids catch up. Make sure you write this down in your notebook. Okay. Multiply first, and then add and subtract. Yes, it does work with exponents. We just need to be mindful of our signs. So we've got another problem, slightly different, to give you guys a little bit different experiences to these things. So we're going to go through the same process of GEMMA: grouping, exponent, multiply, and divide, add and subtract. So the first one, I think I do see a grouping. So I see this group right here. Okay, I'm not going to do the exponents first. I'm going to do this group in here. 4 minus 5. Well, 4 minus 5 should be -1. Now, that group there has an exponent, which I think we'll do next. But let's bring down the rest of this equation first. There's 8, and there's +3. Okay, so this -1 cubed can be rewritten as -1. So, sorry, let's check off this grouping because we're done. Okay, this -1 can be rewritten as -1 times -1 times -1 3 times. Well, negative and negative make a +1. That's these two times -1, and a positive and negative make a -1. So all I get's a -1. Okay, the shortcut is you can use any odd with a -1 and always be a negative number. Okay, I'll bring the rest of this problem down. Here's my +3. Here's my 8 times -1. Okay, and we can check off exponents. We'll do multiply and divide next. So here's my multiply. There's my multiply. 8 times -1 is -8. And I'm done. No more multiply and divide. We can just do add and subtract last, +3. Okay, so this one is -8 plus 3. Again, I'm just going to subtract if they're different signs. 8 minus 3 equals 5. So here's my 5. Negatives win. So that means this is going to be a -5. Okay, pause the video if you need to. Let the kids catch up and copy down their notes. Example 3. Again, grouping. This is important because there's two groups. So with grouping, I'm going to start on the very, very inside. -5 and +3 is going to be a -2. Subtract and take the sign of the larger one. Okay, so that's -2. That's still within this other group, the second set of brackets. That's not absolute values because they got those lines there. And I'm going to have 4 minus this number. Okay, so that's my second set of groups. And I have -8 times on the outside. Okay, so 4 minus -2. Well, you know what? Let's keep going. This is my grouping. This comes, I know this is adding, but that's my grouping. So my grouping comes first, even though there's adding inside. Okay, negative and negative, that makes a positive. Okay, 4 plus 2, that becomes 6. That becomes 6. Then I have a -8 in the front times 6. And then that becomes, let's check this off. That's my grouping. There are no exponents. Sorry, I should have not done that in red. And then multiply and divide. 8 times 6. 8 times 6, multiply and divide is 48. And one negative and a positive, different signs means my answers are going to be negative. Okay, grouping, exponents, multiply, and divide, add and subtract. Okay. Now, your homework, okay, don't forget, your homework today is page 86. I usually don't give you page numbers, but since I'm not here, page 86, 1, 2, and 5. Okay, make sure you show all your work. One is a little bit longer than the rest. Okay, today you're going to be taking your quiz. Okay, open notes, no calculators. No calculators on your quiz whatsoever. Okay, you have 40 minutes to have it done, turned in, and put into the correct folder. Okay, homework's right here. Write it down in your planner right now. Okay, Let everyone take out their planners. Write down your homework, please.